Welcome. We have mind-blowing theories regarding Fantastic Four first steps. They're going to take you directions you hadn't thought about. I have not heard fully discussed the one anywhere at this moment on the internet. Maybe it's a reach, but I think you will be going, oh, that is really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So before I get to that, this is Norb with Silver Age. I want to hear your comments. Please like and subscribe to our channel. The mind-blowing theory, I'm not disclosing it, what it is, but I'll give you a hint. Jack Sparrow. Think about it. So the movie starts and it alludes to, hey, Fantastic Four, heroes, they saved us, etc., etc., etc. You all know the story. So I think the story that hasn't really discussed is they were in a space race to get to the moon first, or actually space, maybe the moon, and with the Russians. And the Russians were also hiring an outside contractor like Reed Richards, who was hired, I think, by the NASA equivalent, ASA, and Russians hired their space scientist, which I think was Malkovich, who ends up playing the Red Ghost. And they run to get to space first, and astronauts are considered heroes, I think, in this world. And so they get to space first as a family, even more heroic story. And so they go from there, and I think here's the first thing that throws you a little bit off guard. You know how the trailer shows something like the planet looks like it's blowing up? I don't think that's what's happening. I know that some people think it's a dream, a read. I think what's happening is that's a cosmic storm that they flew through, and we're just seeing a memory of that event. That's what they gave them their powers. Also, I think at that point in time, the Russians, they got up there just a tad behind them, and they also went through, and that scientist, once again, Malkovich, who eventually becomes a Red Ghost, he's going through there. He has some apes to see what impact has on them. And so he gets some powers, and the apes get some powers. So I think that's what happens. And we don't get to see much of that at that point. I know potentially in the future in the comic books, they all have a fight on the moon, Fantastic Four, Red Ghost, the apes, and they come across the Watcher. Watcher, that could be an impact on this as well. That could be one of the mind-blowing theories here. We'll get to that a little bit later. So I want to hear your comments. Give me some feedback. Am I going the right direction, you think? Let me know. So then we also see Baxter Building, dinner stuff on Sunday dinner being very important. You know, growing up in the 60s, that usually was always very, very important. It still is today to a point, and I think that's what they wanted to underscore and underline. The family thing, always here promptly at 7, boom, boom, boom. That goes forward a couple of years, and those couple of years later, they're late. I guess they saw doctors on Sundays, and they find out Sue's pregnant, but she just walks in, they say late, and one thing leads to another, and they figure it out that Sue's pregnant, and they harass Reed about not being ready to be a dad, but we're going to be ready to be uncles. So I think, once again, that establishes the idea, family first, which means a lot to this mind-blowing thing I'm going to throw out later. I do think about a year and a half earlier than this dinner setting thing, they did have to save the city of New York from the Mole Man. And the Mole Man was the first villain they faced in the comic books. And he tried to take over the city. He was a resident of Manhattan, got harassed, etc., etc. And he ended up getting some minions underground that followed him. Some monsters got control of a few things. And he wanted to get revenge on the planet. New York was the first place. And so that's where he was going to come up. And I think that's where you'd see this medallion. But I think the twist here from the comic books It somehow or another gets connected with the Red Guardian, and the Red Guardian helps them develop this earthquake device. And this earthquake device could potentially destroy the world. And this is where I think we hear Ted Gilbert's show talking about how they have saved the planet, and we owe them a debt of gratitude to Fantastic Four. And I think that's where it is. And I think the medallion just reinforces that. And then I don't think we're going to see Red Ghost or Lone Men here anymore in this at this point. Maybe in the follow-up movie, maybe an alternate universe, but not directly anymore. Okay, once again, hint. Jack Sparrow, think about that. Pirates of the Caribbean, think about that. Dead Man's Chest, think about that. So I think when they're having dinner, I think this is somewhere around Halloween time. I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 years after, maybe 5 years after they first went into space the first time. They're looking out in the sky. Sky's dark, and you see this fireworks and stuff, and that's really the Silver Surfer coming in, hiding herself, and they walk down the streets, and somehow or another, Silver Surfer senses that this team protects the universe, protects the planet, it says you're the protectors, et cetera, et cetera. There's dialogue back and forth, and basically, they ask Sue, are you the protectors? And they go, yes, and that surprises Reed. You can see that. But the bottom line at this point in time is there's dialogue that happens, and I think the dialogue goes something like this. Your planet's been marked for death. You have a year, you have 8 months to pray to your gods, prepare yourself to die. I think that's what happens. And at that point, Reed is trying to figure out how to fix things. And somehow he recalls there may be something, or he may have got a visit from the Watcher about some special devices that may be on the moon. And he remembers that he had an encounter with the Red Ghost and his apes prior on the moon that they won, but they've come across all these weapons, so he wanted to go out there and find that. And that's when he says, we're going to go up there, and Sue says, we're going to do this as a family, even though she's pregnant. And she talks Reed into going, and so that's when they go back in space. I still think they have the 3-prong rocket. I'm not 100% sure. It might be the 4-prong rocket. So they go in space, and that is where things get wild. And this is the mind-blowing theory I'm throwing out to you all. I mentioned Jack Sparrow. I mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean. I will talk about Dead Man's Chest. Swan, the governess Swan. She drops this gold medallion in the water when she collapses and faints and falls in. She drops that. It sends out waves through the water of energy. And those waves of energy let Barbossa know that the last piece of gold is out there that he needs to finish his quest to be able to find and give himself life again. I think when she gave birth in space, it put out similar waves. Those waves hit Galactus. Galactus was just planning to come here whenever he gets done with the other prior planet, eat this planet, be done with it, and go forward. But when those waves hit, he knew that something was just born, just arrived in the universe that could fill his need of recreating his old universe, bringing back his love, whatever. This is why he decides to come to the planet. And that's why we see him walking New York City in a very large form and looking for it. And I think when he finds it, he finds Fantastic Four, finds the child, they end up having a conversation. He reduces in size and says, okay, here's the deal. I'll save the planet, but you give me the child. And that then causes a downfall of the complete faith of the planet in population in Fantastic Four, or on the planet, and they're no longer well liked because of the next steps they do. And then shortly thereafter, we see this little trailer that shows Sue saying, "I'm not giving up." I think she says, "I am not giving up Franklin," because he's been born, as we know. I think that's what this whole thing's about. We as family are going to protect the son, and everyone as Fantastic Four agrees with that. That's where we go from now. That's the mind-blowing theory. That's what have the cosmic wave caused them to know this. In the comic books, Franklin is an incredibly powerful mutant who can destroy universes, create universes, even Big Bang, close a Big Bang, etc. That's why he's so powerful, and they can give Galactus what he's searching for. So I think Galactus says, "I'll give you X number of days to think about this," and I think that's where we're at. Now, my theory gets just a tad bumpy here because I'm not sure if the Watcher makes a visit or Reed goes back to the moon and finds something he thinks is going to be able to stop Galactus or put him in another universe away from them, or not, but he comes up with an idea, and that's where you go out to their launch pad, and now you see this bigger ship that has 4 fins on it, a lot larger. You can see the words US, and that's why it says USA, and Fantastic Four, and they're building that ship for a purpose, and I don't know if it's for exploration or the government has sanctioned them to, just in case, build an ark to take some people off. And that's when Reed says, "We don't have enough time to get this done, to get it loaded, whatever it might be." I think that's where we're at in the trailers. And at that point, it's going to be them challenging Galactus, saying, "Hey, we'll take the kid to another universe. You'll never be able to solve this." And I think at that point in time, the Watcher probably gave him guidance to go look for the X-Men and the Avengers to come back and combat them. And I think this eventually leads to the Doomtales, etc., etc. So please give me your thoughts, comments. I know this is probably like, wow, but I really think this is the only way you can explain how Galactus knows of a new being that has cosmic powers that will solve what Galactus is missing in his life and what he wants back. And I think that's important.